Yo, what's up, Eikon? Welcome. We got something special for you guys tonight as we continue our series, the One series, as we've been journeying through Ephesians. And we're finishing out Ephesians 5, and we hit the topic on marriage, roles in marriage, what Paul is encouraging the church, the people of Ephesus in their marriages to be like and to do. So we're going to tackle that tonight through discussion and conversation. I'm really excited, and we got some really special people to me and my wife in our lives. We want to introduce them as we go on. And so we'll start with Jared and Laura. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves, how long you guys have been married, all that good stuff.
Sure. My name is Jared. This is my amazing wife, Laura. You probably all know her. We've been married for 11 and a half years. We've been dating for 14 years? 13 years?
Around that.
13 or 14 years. We met, this is the very short story. If you want to know the long story, come find us like after church or after Eikon one time. But we met two ways. On MySpace, because we're old, and working at a restaurant together. We both worked at Buca di Beppo. And it was love at first sight. And
Wow,
ooh.
that was like, I didn't
oh no,
know
like
that.
I saw him like,
I'm just
oh
kidding.
dang, this girl.
No.
But yeah, and it's been amazing.
That's awesome. And these are good friends, Aaron and Katie Mills. They've been really important, I believe, in our lives, just giving us wisdom, truth, as we've been journeying along in our marriage. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves, tell them a little about how long you guys been married and all that good stuff too.
Happy to be here. Good to see you guys tonight. But yes,
You're so
Katie
formal.
and I. Hello. Nice to meet you. Katie and I, we met in college. So we, I think it was about 20 plus years ago, we started dating. And then this is now our 17th year of marriage into our 18th anniversary in a couple of months here. So nothing but bliss. Loved every moment of it. We met in Indiana. She wooed me to South Florida, and we've been in ministry together since. So, yes, definitely highs and lows, but excited to be here for a few minutes with you and just talking through some of that tonight.
Very cool. So we're going to read our text tonight. We're starting in verse 22 of Ephesians chapter 5, and we'll talk a little bit about it, and then we'll get into our discussion and our conversation about it. So verse 22, it says, "Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is head of the wife, as also Christ is head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything." Now the husband's turn. "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish." Verse 28, "So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church." Verse 30, "For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let each one of you in particular so love his own wife as himself." He repeats it again, right? "And let the wife see that she respects her husband." Now, in a way, this text could be like controversial. It could be, in a way, a very hot topic in the way of church and in the world of hearing wives submit, even the roles of husbands. Is it an archaic way of marriage, or is this the best way to have a healthy marriage? Some people can think that this is suppressive to women in marriages. So we want to talk about this, like practically how we live this out. And we believe what Paul is telling the people of Ephesus, that this is actually the best way, and that this is not suppressive, but this is actually the way to empower one another, the one to be in a way selfless and full of life, and your marriage just full of life. In the way that God intended it to be. So we're going to just dialogue about this right now. We're going to start off on a fun question to begin with, just to get it rolling. So I want to know, question one, let's talk about one thing that you were surprised about your spouse when you first got married. What was one thing you guys were surprised, maybe even taken back, like a shocked when you guys first got married? So anyone can start, whoever wants to go first. We ain't got to have no order. Whoever has the first answer, go for it.
Well, I'll say kind of the way that we, like, clean and dirty live. That sounds kind of strange, but, like, I'll say bathroom etiquette, okay? Like, when it comes to the bathroom, like, the way that I keep my bathroom is very different than the way he keeps his bathroom, and this is actually something that surprised me that I loved, because I'm pretty messy. But he's not. He's, like, really clean and tidy and all this.
Yeah.
And then there's one other thing I think you, like, really irks you or surprised you.
Oh, surprised me. So I didn't know necessarily that there was like that there was going to be like this weird, I don't want to call it an issue, but a weird thing. It has to do with the bathroom. Toothpaste. There's two types of toothpaste people in the world. There's those who squeeze from the middle of the tube, and we'll pray for them because that's monstrous. But then there's those that use the back of the tube and they squeeze it down like a normal human being. And my wife borrowed my toothpaste one day, and it squeezed in the middle of the tube. I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, the tube is all crinkly now. It's not all nice and smooth. And it's like, Laura, do you always squeeze your toothpaste like this? And she goes, yes. I'm like, what? What is this? What is... And that shocked me. And we've been working on that in our marriage.
I don't have time to delicately roll the bag of the toothpaste. We got places to go, okay? Things to do.
I'm particular about weird things like that, and I think that's what kind of shocked her.
That's good. What's the thing that shocked you guys? What's something that was shocking?
It was kind of shocking to me because he's louder when I lived with him. Like, when we were dating, he was very, hey, what's up? You know, you want to hang out? And then, like, living together, I'm like, oh my gosh, you close the cabinet doors really loudly. Oh my gosh, you open the door and walk around the house. Like, it's like a giant is, like, stomping through the house. And he talks loud from across the house. I can hear him on the phone. I'm like, isn't the person right there? Like, so I think he was just like the volume. He's a loud guy. So now we've worked on it. Like, he takes his shoes off when he comes in, so it's not so loud. Walking around, you work on these things. Yeah. You adapt.
There's signals.
Yeah.
Also.
Like, turn it down.
That's funny.
For me, I grew up in a family of females, but getting married and actually living in the same space together brought a whole new meaning to the fact that you were just going to find things that weren't your own. There's hair everywhere. I'll pull it out of things that are not at all anything related to what would be hers, like my clothes, or out of a drawer, and it's in the sink or not in the sink. It's on the floor, and it's like, that's not mine because it's way too long. And now with two daughters that are now in the home too, it's just that much more. So it was a surprise to realize that there was going to be dishes and hair, or whatever it was, it's and hair, because it's just
coffee cups
everywhere. So that was very surprising, but also a little bit awkward and scary at times too, just because of where it's found.
Yo, that's good. Babe, why don't we didn't get to introduce ourselves. Why don't you tell them about us, a little bit about our marriage, and then tell us like what thing has been shocking to you. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm Alisar. I'm Drew's wife. We have been married almost 7 years. 7 years in this coming January. And we met through mutual friends in college. Mm-hmm. You were on tour, just traveling around, playing, and one of his best friends was my best friend, and we met. And we've been dating, I guess, almost 10 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. Something shocking about Drew is he's just like very, very particular about his things and has an order to things and a place for things. And with marrying him came this shock of lint brushes and the importance of it in your daily life.
They know about that.
So not just in the clothes, but like I would catch him lint brushing like the couch. Mm-hmm. And we like upgraded to jumbo rolls.
Yes.
So
jumbo roll, dude. Don't buy the little one. Just get a jumbo. Covers so much more ground on you.
And they're always
amazing.
in surprising sections of stores. So like I know where they're located now. Publix, Target, Walgreens.
That's awesome. A surprising thing for me when we first got married is Alisar doesn't like to close any drawer or cabinet in the home. So it honestly can look like a horror film sometimes that like the whole house just exploded and there's cabinets open everywhere, you know? Highly dangerous if you're coming over to the house. Very dangerous at night walking through a bedroom, you know? You never know when your knee's gonna get clipped out by a drawer. But that was something that's very surprisingly shocking, maybe a little bit frustrating. It hasn't changed. Everything is open.
Easy access.
So that was definitely something that was weird. So I want to know then, what are some false beliefs or maybe even some like false expectations that you guys brought into your marriage in maybe the first few months? What are some like false beliefs, maybe like unrealistic expectations, false expectations that you guys brought into your marriage at the beginning? Maybe even hold now. We can be honest, right? Yeah. So maybe even now.
I think I can say one of the things that was kind of a false belief, or for me, was that marriage is easy. Like you get married, man, life is gonna be so much fun, so easy, and it's incredibly fun. But I kind of thought that because my parents have been married for 40-something years. My grandparents on both sides have been married for 60-something years, and so I've seen like these long-lasting marriages. I'm like, man, they can, you know, it's easy to go the long haul. We can totally do that. Yeah. And getting into marriage, the first few months, I can't tell you how many times like we sat like on our bed like, do we even have enough money to get groceries today? This is hard. Marriage is hard. And like we thought it was gonna be like, you know, so easy because we see, you know, on TV, you see in movies and in our own families like this great perfect picture painted. And marriage is the most beautiful thing ever, but it's a lot of work and it's really difficult, and it's something that we learn and grow through together. And so that was something, I don't know if it was that way for her, but I know in my mind, like I had it built up like that.
That's a good one.
No, for me, just growing up, like I grew up in a broken home. Like I think we had 5 different divorces before I was like 11, from my mom and my dad, and different people that they were with as well. So I think I'm just so thankful that like we do have issues, because then we can work through them. And I'm just so thankful that like, and not to say that's giving up, but I look at the picture that my family was and I go, okay, I want to fight for it. I want to fight for it. And so I'm just really thankful that we're able to walk through it all together. We're going to get to that mark.
Absolutely.
And beyond.
Let's go. I think for me, the thing, we were best friends for several years. We dated. I feel like we had pretty realistic expectations coming in as far as marriage goes, but
We got really good at fighting so that we didn't have to as
we
much
fought
after.
when we were dating a lot, so that the first year of marriage was like, we're good. This is fine. No, seriously though, I think we were just very compatible. We live well together. We have very similar living habits. We're good roommates, which can be a pitfall at times because you want to have some of those rumbles. You want to have. So for us, I would say the biggest challenges have actually come in parenting. He's still my best friend. I still think we live well together. We love to be together. We love to hang out together. We love a lot of the same things. We share interests. But when we had kids, it was like, oh my goodness, this is like next level challenging. And that was a surprise to us because we were both teachers. We both loved children. We had done VBS and missions trips with kids. His mom ran an at-home baby daycare. He's like a baby whisperer. So like I just never anticipated that parenting would be such a challenge, but that's really been where our challenges in our marriage have been.
And equally so rewarding though. So we're very thankful for our children.
We love our kids. They're just hard to,
harder than we thought. Yeah, I think along those lines, a misconception that I had was this like desire that you have while dating and even seeking after someone to date, and then you get to that next season of being engaged and then marriage, and it's like, I want to be with you all the time. Aren't we just going to love each other's company all the time? And it's actually so much healthier when we're apart to then come back together to be together. And I think that was learned in a way after marriage, because you look for all the hours when you're dating or in those seasons to be able to be together. And then it's like, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. And then you call, an hour after that, just to be like, hey, what's going on? I miss you. But the value of us in our marriage is definitely finding those things that fill us up and fuel us, the hobbies we like that may not be together, and with other people who can fill us up and fuel us, remind us who we are, as well as the fact that God has a plan for us, and then we come back together. So that's been a lifeline for us, whether it's going and playing basketball or having a conversation or meeting someone for a coffee or whatever it might be. There's just value in doing that separate to then come back together. So it's really planning that out and finding that time that's been really healthy and good for us. And I would say I did not see that being the case back when we were dating, or when I was seeking after, oh my goodness, I can't wait for all the bliss and excitement that's going to come with marriage.
That's good.
That's really good. I would say for me, just like kind of putting a false expectation that the way that I saw my parents' marriage and the roles that they took in their home would carry over into ours. And it's like things you talk about in premarital, but still like have to figure out once you're like living in the same 700 square foot apartment. So I would say that just kind of projecting expectations that I saw modeled in my household growing up.
Yeah, I would agree with her, to be honest. I think we shared a similar thing of not that there was like specific roles to like, it's just like what my dad did, what my mom did, what they took on, I think that she might have brought in of like, hey, I'm going to be handy, because her dad is like, he's a boss of being like a handyman. Bro, I don't know how to hang a picture frame up, bro. Jared just asking if I know how to place. You guys are going to judge me, bro. You can go judge me in the comments. That's fine. He's like, I had a flat tire. Jared's like, you know how to change it? I'm like, yeah, right. You know what I mean? It's like, I just don't know, so I'm just driving on a flat for a mile, right? It's just these specific things that, I think for my wife or I, just as it was modeled, even just naturally through my parents' marriage and what worked for them. Yeah, we just hired out. You know what I mean? If something's broken, we're going to hire it out.
And my dad would break it more and then try to fix it again.
So I think that's been good, because it's not like, oh, this is what Alistar is just supposed to do. No, it's like, I'm absolutely a part of that. You know what I mean? It's like team mentality instead of here's your area, here's mine.
Yeah.
But it's something that I think that we've definitely had to communicate through. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the times that can go like unspoken. Yes. And then you just assume.
Like the IKEA boxes that have not been built yet.
Yeah, that's now a playground for the kids. Like, I don't want to set that up.
I hate IKEA.
Yes, it takes forever.
That's funny.
Oh, man.
He likes it.
So, in the beginning of the text, it's talking about wives submitting. It talks about submission. That could seem like a very unfair word, especially like, why is this just to the wives, a word in conversation just with friends or throughout just our generation have said, oh, that's a very archaic way of marriage, Is it old school? Is this not relevant anymore? But to be honest, and what I want to have a conversation is about, how is this a way to have a thriving marriage? Is it unempowering? Is it suppressive? So what does that role, what does that calling over your life as wives mean to you? And if someone wants to even define the word like that term submit, you know what I mean? What's it meaning in that? I'd love if whoever would want to take a whack at that and share. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and share with our community about that.
I'll take a shot. I think that with any passage of scripture, especially one that can be a hot topic, it's important to look at the whole context. What is this letter about? Why is it being written? Who is it being written to? The whole Bible is that way. It shouldn't ever be taken like one verse out of context and used with someone. It's so important to look at the whole story of scripture as a canon. And I think in this specific letter and in other letters that talk about the roles of husbands and wives, we see a need for order. And I think this is a really good place to say, okay, how does what we're being asked to do in the way we love each other, the way we submit and respect one another, how does that reflect how Jesus lives? Because really, as a man or a woman, no matter what your gender is, you're called to be like Jesus. You're called to be more like Jesus. Jesus loved people. He laid down his life for them, like what it says for the husbands. He submitted himself to the will of his father. He submitted himself at times even to other people, even though he was more powerful in ways. So when I look at this verse, I think about in the context of the Trinity, how the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit are always deferring to one another. They never claim power and authority for themselves. They always defer just that honor to each other. And I think when I study this verse, and definitely before marriage, I was like, I got to know what this really means because I don't know if I'm cut out for this. When you go back into the translation, into the original language, it's actually different than how our society has often used it to suppress women and to really make them feel like a lesser in the marriage. It's really that idea of how do we come alongside? How do we act on behalf? And in fact, one translation talks about being deployed on behalf of. So almost like, hey, I have an assignment to stand next to him, to be for him, to be in his corner. Like I'm deployed on his behalf. I'm there to be alongside him. So he's not alone. When God made man and woman, he talked about it's not good for man to be alone. So for me, understanding that original language, and the word is not translated to obey, or to be in a way that looks lesser, but really to come alongside and to defer honor and to say, hey, let's love and respect each other, but I'm willing to lay down my selfish desires or to set aside what I want all the time and really say, hey, what's God showing you? Let's pray together. Let's come back together. And God has never really spoken to Aaron where he didn't confirm it with me. There's not a dissonance there when you're in God's will and you're that deferring.
Thanks for finishing that thought.
That's different. The Lord speaks to him. No, but when you're deferring back to each other and then back to the Lord at the center of your marriage, there's a beautiful, it's like an orchestra. Like all the pieces just work together and it makes something that you're like, wow, if I had forged ahead on my own or done my own will or wanted my own path and not come together with the Lord, then marriage just wouldn't work. So I think for me, some of it is context, some of it is understanding, and some of it is application of how do I actually put this into practice and say, what's best for me is not always what's best for us. So how do we come together and really bring the Lord back into the middle?
That's really good. What I think is really cool as we continue, I want to hear everyone's answers. It's like, man, like these like women in this room right here are like very confident in like women in leadership in our community, within our church, and not to pop up, but you know what I mean? It's like, man, the Lord has placed each one of them in very like main roles or like in a place of influence in our church and our communities. I mean, that was the one thing I was like most attracted about Alisar. I was like, dude, she was confident. And I was like, oh, you's confident. You know what I mean? Like I was very attractive. You know what I mean? So how does this not take away from that confidence? You know what I mean? Have you ever felt like that has wanted to hinder that? Because the way I believe Christians would receive this from what the world would be completely different. So could you share practically how you guys are living that out, and fully embracing that, and it like makes your role like complete and full of life?
Well, you want to go? I was just gonna say, when I think of it too, I think of it as in like it's a honoring, and I think that we do it for each other. We're honoring each other, like you were saying, the side by side. I'm with you, and I feel covered. I feel this beautiful covering from my husband, where he values my input. We have great communication, and when it comes to what you're talking about, Drew, I feel very championed by my husband.
That's good.
Like he's not threatened by me. He's not threatened by any ministry that I do or have the opportunity to do. He champions me, and he's always the first to tell me, "Babe, you can do this," and he's gonna be by my side with it. But I will say, when it comes to submission and using that term. Personally, I am so thankful that I can come to my husband and say, what do you think? I trust you. I trust you because I know you're talking to the same God that I'm talking to. And just like you said, he's going to speak what he speaks to Jared, he's going to speak it to me. It may not be at the exact same time, but he's going to speak it. And so I feel covered. And that's how I look at that passage. Like, I'm covered by my husband and we're alongside each other.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with everything they shared. I think practically what submission has looked like, I would feel like, I love what Katie said, that most of the time when you're trekking with the Lord and your husband is also following the Lord, there's not a lot of conflict. But when there is, and when you are in disagreement, I would say practically submission has been me going before the Lord, checking my own heart, making sure I'm not like sinning against him or sinning against somebody else, inviting outside counsel in to speak into that. And recently I was talking to my therapist, and we were in disagreement about a timeline of a decision that we were making. And it was really hard. And it's probably one of the first times in our marriage that I feel like we're at like a standstill of like what the next step was. And really there was this, for me, this moment of just her saying, well, like ultimately Drew is responsible to the Lord. And it was this relinquishing of control. And that was the sin in my heart, was like just that lack of submission really unto the Lord, and trusting that he was going to carry and lead and direct our family in the right timing, in the right way, through confirmation and peace. So that was a really big moment for me of realizing that. And also the men have a higher order of conviction in Ephesians 5. So you guys can go chat about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
The guys have a tall order. We pray for them.